Without further ado, let's jump into it. The first segment here is the ServiceNow landscape, or what I like to call the ServiceNow landscape. And Akash, I'll start with you. When customers get the product, they do have a lot of questions, and I like to point to different areas in ServiceNow to get that information. So could you kind of walk us through how a customer might navigate that landscape, where to get certain specific pieces of information, how to kind of help themselves be more self-sufficient in some areas?
Sure. Thanks, Victor. Thanks for having me on, and thank you everybody for attending. So really, we're dividing this into three different categories: the now learning, product information, and then the community itself, the ITAM community within the ServiceNow community. Now learning, it's a lot of different training sessions on demand, or live training sessions with a instructor-led type of training sessions. Some of them are free, some of them are by training credits or paid for training. But it's going to help you they're not just certification trainings. There's going to be trainings that might have smaller topics that you can focus on, let's say software normalization or something like that within the training session itself. So it's going to give you an opportunity to kind of learn the product, and not just software asset management, but the Now platform as a whole. There's a lot of different offerings out there. And then with the product information, so here we're talking about the doc site. So within there, you're gonna, we've got information about basically the capabilities, the features, how they're set up, a little bit of the step-by-step of how to navigate to it, what's included within that feature, what kind of details can you get out of it. Like we'll see when I do the demo, we'll see things like, the plugins that are involved, or, with the software normalization, what tables and fields are involved in there. So you can get a little more detailed technical information around that, the product itself. And then the ITAM community. So this is your way of engaging other customers, engaging other consultants, ServiceNow folks as well. The product team's in there a lot. But it's a place to be able to ask your questions, search other questions that have been asked before, see what those responses were. Also, we've got blogs out there, we've got videos out there, and then link to KB articles and so on and so forth. So I can kind of go through each one of those and show those from a screen perspective. Yeah,
that'd be great. So if I were to summarize it just from what I heard, the Now Learning is your educational platform. The product information is your technical kind of product information, and how-to manuals in some cases, or definitions and things of that sort. And the community is where you engage. So you have three different areas where you can not only get information, but also learn from the product. So that'd be great to go through those. Let's do that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna grab this. So this is the, I'm logged in as myself. So this is the initial Now Learning website. You'll see, as you scroll through, as you take classes, it'll have you go through like a quick, what are you interested in type of selection process. And then based off of those interests, it'll start showing you different items that you can take, different classes you can take. And some of them, like I said, some of them are on demand, some of them instructor led, paid versus free, and so on and so forth. And then you can also search for certain classes or topics. So let's just go and search for software asset management. And then within software asset management, what kind of classes are available? Not just the certification classes, but we do have a fundamentals course out here, which we'll see here in just a second.
Yeah, that fundamentals course is the one that we always recommend our customers to do out of the gate, right? You buy the product.
Yep. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And so we do have, an instructor-led one, for those that like to have a little more of that one-on-one time. And then the on-demand course for those that need a little bit of that flexibility. We have that as well. But then like we'll go through here. There are some courses that are geared towards smaller, quicker courses that are more focused. So this integration with SCCM for reclamation and distribution. We've got one in here for software normalization, something that we'll be touching on today as well. So it's not just larger courses; it's even more focused ones as well.
Yeah, that's great. So the fundamentals course is going to give you an overview of everything that is SAM. And then these other courses that you just highlighted, these are kind of the supplemental courses that go into a deeper depth into those topics. Awesome.
Yeah, and as you can see, as we have newer releases and newer features, a lot of those courses then will get added over time as well. So like we have the workspace one out here to kind of give you that overview.
Perfect.
Yeah. So the next part of that landscape is the product documentation. And as I said, this is going to be a little more detailed information. So and more technical in nature. But let's say we go looking at software normalization. I could spell and think and talk at the same time. So if we drill down into one of these, and we're going to be able to kind of see, like with this one's tied in with discovery, as well as the normalization process. And so it just goes through and just kind of explains a little bit of that detail. We're talking a little more as far as if we wanted to get a little more technical in nature. I think they've got some different rules and what are the normalization suggestion forms, what fields are on there, and so on and so forth. So it'll give you a little more detail about the overall concept around, in this case, software asset management, and then some more details around, what that functionality is and what's behind a little bit of what's behind the scenes of that functionality.
Awesome.
And then finally, on the community site, so this is when we're talking about engagement, right? This is where you can go and you can engage other customers. You can, put questions out there for and see what other customers have done, and that are similar to your implementation or what you're trying to implement. And maybe we want to go look at those kind of things. If you're a developer, our developer site is also very important, where you can come out and there's a lot more technical discussions out there, a lot more technical references out there as well. So here, let's just, again, we're talking about normalization. So let's just stick with that and then see what comes up. So we should be getting some questions that have been asked and answered through this process here, and you can see the green check boxes. Those are correct answers or accepted answers, as well as some in this case, like our internal IT operations management team had put out a series around software normalization and the reconciliation process. If we go to this knowledge and documentation, one of the things that it will pull up, and while this is going, it's actually going to be this particular document that it pulls up, but it's a KB article that in this case does a deep dive into that software normalization and talks through the entire process and so on and so forth. So again, just different places to try and find some of that information around the topic that you're looking for.
No, that's great. I mean, I think the fact that there's blogs out there and there's questions. I mean, oftentimes when I go through that, I see the same question over and over again. It's nice to see that there's a central location to find answers to those questions. And then the added effect is there's a knowledge and documentation portal right next to that, accessible, so that you can actually get some more information, deep dive into that.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, awesome.
Right.
So those were the three areas in our ServiceNow landscape where folks can get information. I think now is a good time to jump into our next segment, where we're now looking at plugins and the store app. So you've got the product, you've purchased it, you're starting to educate yourself and find more information on what is what. Now, how do you actually activate SAM, right? So
Yep.
what is the difference between plugins and store apps? And we hear that kind of interchangeably, but there might be clarification that's needed there.
Yeah, so plugins are, that was the original way of enabling features and functionality within your instance. A lot of times these were just native within the instance, and your admins could go into the plugin table and enable those plugins. In a demo instance, they may have also loaded some demo data to kind of get you started and get you an idea of what that the overall functionality looks like. So that's the plugin side. Now, for certain plugins, you do have to create high tickets. So like for the first one we're looking at, the master plugin for software asset management, you do have to create a high ticket to have that enabled. So once, everything is done on the licensing side and on the, the instance, you've gotten the instance and so on and so forth, then you'll want to go ahead and create a high ticket to get that the master plugin enabled. So there are some plugins that do require a high ticket. On the store app side, so this is kind of a newer way that we're releasing functionality, releasing capabilities and features is through the store app, the ServiceNow store website. So with that, it allows us to roll out features and updates to particular capabilities that we'd be able to do that on a more frequent basis, right? So family releases are twice a year. Our store apps, we have a quarterly release. So it allows us to get some things out there that may not necessarily be family release based. It could be, it could cover multiple releases, but at the same time, it gives us the ability to develop and get something out to our customers a little quicker. So that's kind of the difference between the two. As far as sequencing of these, we kind of have these sequenced right here, and it kind of makes sense overall. You want that master plugin to be enabled first for the full software asset management capability, and then along with that, get the workspace, our new workspace plugin enabled, and then we've got one down here for procurement. So just for clarification, this procurement plugin is our base ITSM procurement plugin, and that includes things like the purchase order table, purchase order lines table, receiving capabilities, sourcing capabilities through from a request. So it's got a lot of the out-of-box functionality that we use in base ITSM asset, software asset management, and the hardware asset management modules. There is a new procurement service, it's procurement service management or procurement management module out there, and I just want to clarify, this is not that particular plugin. That is a different functionality.
And I noticed, Akash, that you have core on one side and advanced. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that? Why are these grouped in that way?
Yeah. So with the core plugins and core store apps, you're really looking at, you're getting majority of your base software asset management capabilities through these core plugins, and you're really able to get started on your overall implementation with those core plugins, and then the core store apps, right? So like within the store app, we're looking at the SaaS license management integration. So that's going to be all of our out-of-box license connections or SaaS connections that we have. Those would be a part of that, as well as the metric for the SaaS, the user subscription and license metrics. Service graph is in here. We're looking at like SCCM or JAMP. And again, that's going to be, bringing in software installation data, some of your CMDB data in regards to, end user compute and things like that. So again, it's some of that core functionality, core capabilities that we need to get started with software asset management. On the advanced side, you'll see here like software spend detection, license change projections, and then when you're looking at the store apps, like the SAP ABAP program, the Glass, the Oracle Glass program, which requires discovery. Those are definitely, more advanced capabilities, advanced features. Not to say you couldn't have that, when you're starting out, but typically for most of our customers, these are things that they're going to start tackling once they get a good understanding and good foundation within their SAM program, utilizing software asset management profession or enterprise,
Awesome.
depending on what you bought.
Yeah, great. I mean, we talk a lot about crawl, walk, and run. That's some of the terms that we have with customers. I can really see the core plugins and the store apps really helping customers with the crawl and walk phase, if you will, the very heart of SAM, things that are around compliance, things that are around optimization. I mean, you could easily accomplish a lot of that with the core plugins. And as you mature in your journey, getting to advanced plugins, getting plugins that can cross-pollinate with different applications, things like vulnerability response, if you will. There's plugins between SAM and vulnerability response. So those things can be addressed as you mature in your journey. Let's go to the next one, which is the software normalization and content service. We talk a lot about that. A lot of customers hear about that. So let's jump into that. And I think the first question I'll ask here, Akash, is why is software normalization so important, especially in SAM?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about the different data repositories, discovery sources that we get information from that's being brought into the CMDB, the way that we identify publishers or the way that we identify a particular title, the versioning, all of that information, if we had to go and try and sift through the number of ways that, a company like Microsoft is listed within these different repositories, it would be very difficult for us to be able to do good reporting and then, eventually reconciliation against that data. And so the normalization process gives us the opportunity to take that data and then through our normalization rules, normalize it to publishers, titles, versions that can then be reported on easily and then also be reconciled against your software models and your software entitlements when it gets to the reconciliation side. So really, it's to clean that data so it can be more usable from a more reporting side. We do keep all of the raw data, so we don't update the original data that comes in. So we still have access to that for other applications within the platform, other reporting needs that you may have outside of software asset management. But we do for on the software side, do normalize that so we can digest it and report on it easily.
Nice. Now, this slide here is an interesting one, right? So this one, what we're talking to here is the feedback loop between, the customer and our content service and how all of this is actually constantly working and it's live. So can you highlight that a little bit and tell us more?
Yeah. So normalization, the normalization engine is the process of cleaning that data, but that normalization engine uses our content data. So the data that is put together by our research teams, that content data is what it basically is checking against to help with that normalization process. So the content information is downloaded to your ServiceNow instance. We do update that through a scheduled job on a weekly basis. And then as part of, if you've opted into our content service, so even if you don't opt into the content, you'll still get the content data. But if you opt into the content service, we're able to then take some of that data that you have manually normalized or that didn't get normalized at all, or you created custom part numbers or custom products, we're able to take that information back into ServiceNow, feed that into our research team, and they're able to take that data and start researching and cleaning it up and getting it normalized and get it into our content. Now, the data that comes back, obviously, that is all anonymous data. We don't take any information from the instance itself of where we got it. We don't store any of that stuff, but it does help us get that data cleaned up and then eventually into the content library for us to feed back to to you as a customer and then to our other customers as well. If you do have with Enterprise, SAM Enterprise, if you do have machine learning normalization, some of that feedback loop that it takes, some of that is reduced because of the machine learning normalization process that will take some of that unrecognized data and feed it through our machine learning capabilities in ServiceNow, and then bring that and normalize that within your instance itself.
Nice. Yeah, and I guess the other thing I'd call out is on average, this is not always, but on average, kind of out of the box, you should expect to see somewhere around 85% normalization. That may vary depending on the type of content you're looking at normalizing. I mean, you may be in a specific industry where it's a very niche type of software or a niche type of content that's required. It may not be in the content service, but that's not to say that it won't be in the near future. And for the majority of folks that are using the Microsofts, the Oracles, the IBMs, the VMwares of the world, a lot of that is already in the content. So that's where you're going to hit those 85% normalization rates out of the box. And if you opt in to the ServiceNow content service, that just increases, right? I mean, that just allows you to bring in more data, get that further normalized so that your specific instance can kind of reach that 95, 98% normalization rate.
Absolutely. And we do have features in, so like, let's say you create a custom part number, but you don't want that, overall you want to be opted in, but you don't want to feed that particular part number back or feed that particular product back because it's a homegrown software. We do have the ability individually to opt out and not feed it back to us.
Specific
yes.
Specific products. Okay. While still benefiting from giving and receiving everything else in between.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Awesome. Let's jump back to the normalization process, and maybe you can walk us through an example or just explain how is data coming in being normalized?
Yeah. So, and this is specific to software installations, but as we get that from the possibly multiple data sources, if you've got discovery, if you've got SCCM, Jamf, possibly the agent client collector with discovery, those software installation records, they're getting created constantly, right? And so from there, we'll take that discovery or that discovered software installation record, and the system will either create a new discovery model or it'll link to an existing discovery model, right? So we'll either associate or we'll go ahead and create one. That discovery model is actually what's getting normalized. So when we're talking about the normalization engine, it's going against the data that's associated to the discovery model. So then at that point, we're going to go ahead and normalize the publisher, the product, version. If we have edition, we'll go ahead and get the edition in there. And then any language information that we could find, any whether it's a Windows device or whatever, like we'll try and apply that as well during that normalization process. And all of that is part of kind of gets tied into our discovery map as well. So the information that's on the discovery map that's on your software model helps identify and query the discovery models table when it's ready, when you're ready to reconcile, or you want to see what discovery models would match up against that software model.
Oh, that's great. So the discovery maps then, which brings in all that information or gets normalized to those maps, is what is the linkage to the software model that contains all the product details and attributes. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, The software model also has associated with it the entitlement. So that's what's pulling together the linkage between your reconciliation, right, from entitlements to your discovery.
That's right. So when you're looking at a software model, there's a link down there that says show discovery models. That's what it's tying back to, and then that's what the query in reconciliation is utilizing to try and find the appropriate installations to associate
sometimes
to that
I've worked with customers,
Awesome.
and they're going to have that 85 to 90% normalization rate, and sometimes they can't find data. Sometimes they can't find content, or something's not getting fully normalized. What are the ways in which customers can kind of ensure that it's true? Hey, I'm not finding this data. And then I guess the second question to that is, what do they do if they can't find content?
Yep, that's a good question. And actually, we came out, and I believe it was San Diego that we came out with the content portal lookup. So this is a store app that you can go out and have download within your instance. It works on the workspace. It is a workspace specific store app. So you'll notice here on the left side, basically you've got these different icons in here. We've got the home, we've got the license. I think this is operations or usage, and then license operations, and so on and so forth. The bottom one will then be, once you've loaded that app, will be the content lookup. So if we take a look at the content lookup, if you have hardware asset management, which I do in this particular instance, you will also see the hardware items over here as well. Otherwise, if you just have software asset management, you will see the software asset management products and publisher part numbers and those kind of things. If we want to do just a simple search, you could search for, let's say, SQL Server. And what that's going to do is going to take a look at our overall and just bring back results from our content library, from our the products table. And then if I drill down into one of these, and we can do some additional filters, like let's say I just want to see licensable products. So we could drill down into this specific SQL Server right here. And then this will actually give you more detailed information, the publisher and so on and so forth. But then it'll also show you the related data. So these are different versions, the DMAPs that we have within the product for this, or within the platform in our content for this particular product. These are different life cycles that have been generated, based off of that information as well. So, end of extended support, end of support, general availability dates, things like that. And then finally, all of the different publisher part numbers that tie to this specific product are also displayed here. So again, it's just being able to get down into the details of the overall content. And the reason we did that was it was so much. It was not easily available. Your admins could create favorites, or they could create a way to get to that data because the tables are in the platform. This just gives our users the ability to look this information up very easily, and so on and so forth. If, let's say, we wanted to go back and we wanted to just we wanted to take a look at the products or take a look at certain publisher part numbers, we can deep dive directly into there as well. And then once you're in here, you're actually just using regular filter capabilities that we have today within the platform. So you could do a contains filter or is filter and look for specific part numbers and filter out and filter based off of that. You can filter based off of publisher or product or anything like that. So this is just your normal list views that you're able to do your filtering on, but it gives you basically access to be able to take a look at that data and try and help find that information before you create a high ticket or something like that. Create a case with ServiceNow. You can take a look at that here. So to answer your second question, what if I'm not able to find anything, right? Like I'm not able to find that specific part number or I did find that part number, but it's not matching up to what we have. We have a contract for, right? That content is not correct. So you could, in that case, create a high ticket, create a case with now support. So you would just click on create a case, log in and now support. Something is broken. So what I like doing is, in the subject here is just say, new content creation, something like that, right? And then just give it a quick, publisher, X and product Y, something, give it some information on what we're looking for. If you have multiple things where you're going to attach a document, then just say, hey, these are products for these publishers, or something like that. And just give it something so it's easily understandable when someone takes a look at it. What instances are impacted? So I'm going to just say it's my instance here. I believe I have we'll use this one for now. And then, the criticality. And obviously, everybody knows that everything is business critical and so on and so forth. But, typically these content ones, while they're very important, they're not critical for you to, they're not a priority one type of thing. If you've got these content tickets, definitely it's something to keep an eye on, but make sure you take that time, go work on something else, go work on other publishers, go work on other part numbers, things like that, while you're waiting for some of that content to get created and loaded back into the system. It doesn't stop you from being able to do more of different SAM areas of SAM. So once we click next, it'll ask you some, it gives you some recommendations, but it'll ask you for some additional information. So, identify what you're trying to get, just like any other case. Really no steps to reproduce in this situation. But the biggest thing is if you do have an attachment, if you have a lot of content that you want created, just add it into an Excel spreadsheet and then attach that to this case. And that'll help kind of get a lot of, you don't have to create for each publisher part number or each product, you don't have to create a single ticket. You could create a larger ticket with multiple content requests all in one, and then have that submitted as well. So you're just kind of following that single ticket overall. Make sense?
Makes sense to me, Akash. That's a really good walkthrough, both for the content portal lookup and the creation of the case. For the case, I think, like you said, it is important to, submit it. And if there's other things that are of higher priority that you need to work on, let that work in the background. A lot of times customers will try to focus 100% all their efforts in just getting content. I think that's okay to start. But once you get to that, hey, I have 50 to 60, 70% of content in the system, you don't really need to struggle on the 30% and make that the number one priority. I would recommend start making value out of the 50 to 60% of content, and then leave that second portion working in the background so that once you build out and get that content, then you can continue your efforts in those regards.
For sure. And it kind of goes back to, perfection is the enemy of progress, right?
Yeah.
So, definitely it is something that needs to get worked on. We're not minimizing the need to, within your organization, to have that content created, but there's probably other things that could get done while you're waiting for that content to get created. It shouldn't stop you from being able to move forward in other areas.
All right, so what we're seeing here is just a slide of what we looked at in the demo. We're going to throw in those KB articles in the chat, but I think we'll open it up for questions. I think it's a good time to move into the question format, and we'll start looking at and reading out the questions we got in the submission form.